we've just heard that there are no boots on the ground, and doesn't look like there's going to be any, that there's a question mark over what this even means. And obviously there's also a question about whether the American people support Trump's ambition in Venezuela. Let's speak to Reed Galen, co-founder of the Lincoln Project, an American political action committee founded in December 2019 by moderate conservatives and former Republican members who oppose Donald Trump and Trumpism. Reed, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So this is quite characteristic of Donald Trump. He's made a statement. We're going to run Venezuela. It doesn't appear as though there's much of a plan in place to make that happen. But some people are saying, look, don't quibble. We all wanted to get rid of Maduro. Venezuelan people will be thrilled that Maduro's gone. The thing about Trump's critics is that you're all process. There's no action. This is at least action. How do you respond to that sort of counterpoint to your skepticism about Trump?
I think in this particular case, it's not just necessarily about Trump. It's about the whole idea of what it is we are even doing in Venezuela, what the cost is, what the history of our efforts such as this are, and what it really means not only for the Venezuelan people, but also for the American people. I mean, the idea that Donald Trump could run Venezuela when he can't even keep millions of Americans properly clothed, fed, housed, and employed, and has spent most of his time enriching himself or really focused on interior decorating. I'm not entirely sure that running a country of 30 million people on a continent he's probably never been to, in a place of which he has no understanding, is something that is even a legitimate idea. But it seems to me that this really is, from my perspective, less about foreign policy and more about how Donald Trump can dissuade or distract Americans from the fact that things are a little bit tougher and going to be tougher here in the U.S. in the coming year. He has his personal problems. He's unpopular broadly with the American people. The economy is really starting to soften. And Congress, the U.S. Congress, is getting nothing done on behalf of its constituents. So to me, there are many tendrils that tie together here. But the last thing that anybody, I think even his supporters, would believe is that Donald Trump is somehow a management guru that can decapitate a foreign nation and then suddenly decide that he's the guy who can run it.
So if it is a distraction tool, as you argue, should we expect there to be more from the same box of tricks? So describing Cuba as ready to fall, or, most pertinently probably, the threat or ambition to take control of Greenland. Should we reconcile ourselves to the fact that there may be a number of such actions?
Well, look, I put nothing past him. A lot of times people say, why don't you seem more upset? It's not that I'm not concerned, it's that I'm not surprised. But I think one thing that you mentioned with your previous guest is that at some point, if you really want to take control of a place, whether or not that's Venezuela, whether or not that's Cuba, whether or not that's Greenland, you are going to have to put American military forces on the ground there. Yes, you can have a Black Hawk helicopter drop members of Delta Force onto the presidential palace, snatch Maduro and his wife from their bed and fly away. You could theoretically even try and do that to the Cuban president. But at some point, those people aren't necessarily fans of the United States, even if they're not fans of their own leadership. And the question I have, going back to whether or not the American people support it, is, as of late November, just about 6 weeks ago, 73% of Americans said that they were not in support of military action against Venezuela. And my guess is that that number's not much higher now. We have decades now worth of, in fact, maybe half a century's worth of foreign adventures in the United States that have worked out badly, not only for the American people, for American service members, for the American economy, but also for the places where we've gone adventuring. And I think that one of the things that Trump was elected on was he was going to get out of this business.
Your arguments, obviously, you'd rehearse them and you develop them, and they sound rational and politically, obviously, there's a strong base of support for them. But you're once forced to confront two things. One, he won re-election and has been politically dominant, has been the force in our lives that has changed politics probably the most. And secondly, that the Republican Party seems to have swallowed this wholesale. How do you rationalize that or sort of explain that to yourself when you see the weakness of some of these arguments?
Look, I think that first and foremost, we should remember that politics is an emotional business. It's not a rational business. And Donald Trump probably understands that internally better than anybody, even if he doesn't understand it intellectually. He is always best understood. To your earlier point, in fact, I got into an argument with a family member about this over the holiday season. He said, we were arguing about Venezuela, and he said, at least he does something. And I think to your earlier point, you cannot underestimate that. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of process. This is illegal. He didn't ask Congress. He didn't do anything, but he does something. He fights. And I think you can't underestimate that in a time when American politics is ugly, but American politics has always been ugly. But American government is sclerotic, ineffective, and unpopular.
Might this, and this is one final question, might this split his base? The America First, the kind of Marjorie Taylor Greene base, even more maybe than Epstein did. Could you see, as I think we saw the first signs with the Iran action, could we see those people begin to turn against him?
We could, but I'm frankly not counting on it. And I'll tell you why. Because even after Iran, when people like Steve Bannon were very upset about this, he got a call from the White House. He got right back in line. You could say that the late Charlie Kirk was probably of a similar vein. Again, got a call from the White House, got right back in line. Senator Mike Lee, who is a huge supporter of the president, but when the news of our attacking the Venezuela first broke, he was very upset on social media, got a call from Marco Rubio, got right back in line. And so I would say that in a normal world with a normal political leader, to your earlier point about who Donald Trump is and his effect on America, that might be the case. But I think that for now, you're more likely to see people stay in line, because to stick your head up is to end up like Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is, dispatched into the political wilderness. She is resigning as of today. She'll have no more political power. She'll have very little clout, would be my guess. And I think there are a lot of other people who say, I'm not really happy about where this ship is going, but it's the only one I've got.
Reed Galen, co-founder of the Lincoln Project. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Coming up, is Trump entering Venezuela really in line with his America First strategy? And that is next on Times Radio.
Global events.
There are two separate elements to the story. One is about the money and one about the behaviour.
Reactive analysis.
So how close are we to signing an agreement, and what red lines are getting in the way?
From the world's best journalists.
People who can provoke your thoughts on the news, headlines and issues of the day.
Keeping you informed as events unfold.
Are they just a bit too reckless for politics?
On DAB, online, on the app and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio.
Here's the truth about AI. AI is only as powerful as the platform it's built into. ServiceNow puts AI to work for people across your business, removing friction and frustration for your employees, supercharging productivity for your developers, providing intelligent tools for your service agents to make customers happier. All built into a single platform you can use right now. That's why the world works with ServiceNow. Visit servicenow.com/UK/AI for people.
At Aberdeen Investment Trusts, we create more ways for your money to work harder. Whether you're looking to tap into global markets or target specific goals at any stage of life, we have options for you. With Aberdeen, our investment knowledge and experience become yours. Search Aberdeen Investment Trust